It's a beautiful day in downtown Cartersville, and we're here at the Bartow History Center on February the 5th, 2012, to discuss the history of the Cartersville Rotary Club. With me is Mr. Jim Dellinger, and I'm Guy Parmenter, both active members of the Cartersville Rotary Club. Jim, tell us a little about your time in the Rotary.
Well, Guy, I've been a member now 59 years. Hard to believe, but I graduated from Georgia Tech in 1953, got married in 1953. Right before I graduated, really. And my dad thought I ought to be in the Rotary Club. So he proposed me for the Rotary Club because I worked here that summer before I went in the Army. And I joined the Rotary Club probably in, I'm just guessing, July, late July of 1953. And it was just terrific because here I was, a young lieutenant up in Bel Air, Maryland, which is a very ritzy area of Maryland. It's racetrack type stuff. Bel Air, they call it Havre de Scratch up there, but it's Havre de Gras is what it is. Anyway, but it's just amazing. I walked into that Rotary Club as a young second lieutenant, and they couldn't believe, that I was a Rotarian. But it was fantastic because I got to meet everybody from the guy who had the local garage and filling station to the doctors to everybody. So I was kind of immediately accepted into that town because I was a member of the Rotary Club. If I'm not mistaken, we met on Wednesday nights, so I was able to go most of the time while I was in the Army. And but I really enjoyed it. And then when I came back, the Rotary, when I was taken into the Rotary Club, we met at the Braben Hotel, and we met there for years and years and years. And a big dining room in the Braben, and it was quite a place because it was full almost all the time, because if you remember, old 41 came right down through Cartersville. And tourists, that was the place to stay, was at the Braben Hotel. And so it was just full of tourists, and about 3 or 4 people from Cartersville lived there full time. Bob Knight was one, Bill Talbert was one, and Miss Leo Turk Lowry, her name was another one. And it was just a fascinating time. And Miss Womelsdorf, Irma Womelsdorf, was a piano teacher here in Cartersville. Her husband was Harry Womelsdorf. And they were the great aunt and uncle of Margaretta Shaw, Budshaw's wife. And Miss Womelsdorf taught piano lessons, and she would play the piano at the opening of every Rotary Club meeting. And the board would be seated across the front, and everybody else would just be at individual tables, tables of 4 to 6. And they would play, and the song would end, and it would end in "Let Freedom Ring." And Mr. Paul Aiken, who would be Warren Aiken, who's now deceased, be Warren Aiken's father, Mr. Paul Aiken would always holler out, "Let her ring," and that's where the Rotary Club would get started, And it was just a fascinating time in my life to be here and do that. And I was extremely active for years. When I came in 53, Clyde Medlock was the president of the Rotary Club in 1953. And then I was the president in 1967 and 1968. And I was preceded by Avery Holland. He was the president for the year prior. And the Rotary Club, like I say, would meet in the Braben Hotel, and everybody would sit out front in the rocking chairs at the Braben and look at all the people going in and out who were staying in Cartersville and traveling and what have you. And Mr. and Ms. Vaughn lived in the Braben, and he kept all the time an immaculate black Ford. I mean, immaculate. You could see yourself in the paint. And they would come out, and before he would crank that car, every time he would get a handkerchief and wipe out the inside of the exhaust pipe. I mean, the inside of the exhaust pipe had to be immaculate. And of course, that gave us a big kick to watch him do that, and off they would go. But we had many interesting times there, I'll say that.
So what do you see different during those times than you see today? Of course, the singing's gone.
Yeah.
Do you think our people would even sing today?
I don't think so. No, but it was always singing, before the meeting actually started,
Right.
Yeah. And then they would hit the gong and start the meeting and do whatever they did, and then introduce the speaker,
Right.
I remember one time there, usually Fred Knight and Thomas Champion and I forget who else, would sit at a table. And we had a visitor there one time. And Fred Knight had a son, and I had a son, and this visitor had 2 boys. And Thomas Champion could get confused sometimes. And old Momo, as we called him, he said, well, I've got 2 boys too. And we said, Champ, you do not, you've got 2 girls. He said, oh, you're so right, you know. But those days were just absolutely fascinating. And I was telling you a while back, I forget the year, but it may have been prior to my coming into the Rotary Club. I may have been off at Georgia Tech. But they really thought that tonsils, kids with tonsils, were probably more likely to get polio than kids without tonsils.
Right.
So the Rotary Club sponsored, and Cartersville did it here in Cartersville, a program to remove kids' tonsils. And I can remember back then, I already had my tonsils out, thank goodness. I can remember back then, kids lined up and down the steps of the Braben Hotel is where they did it, all the way down the street, and doctors sitting in there, and the kids would come in, open their mouths, and the doctors would cut the tonsils out and throw them in a bucket. And they ended up with buckets full of tonsils. And the amazing thing is that nobody got an infection, which is hard to believe. I mean, my goodness, you know, because they probably used the same thing to pull them out time and time again. I don't know what they did, you know.
That sounds more like medicine during the Civil War.
Yeah, you're right, you're right. Yeah, and a lady would come all the time. Her name was Leo Turk Lowry. And her husband was Dr. Tanner Lowry. And his office was between the Mary Mumford Library, which was on the corner of the street that runs in front of the Braven, and Church Street. Mm-hmm. And you could actually hear people hollering in there because Dr. Lowry did not much believe in anesthesia. And most of his, he was a surgeon, and most of his patients were either people involved in automobile wrecks in the Cartersville area that were brought there, or people in the local jail that were brought there to be operated on. But he passed away, and Miss Lowry lived in the Braben Hotel, and her life there, all of her expenses were paid by my father and Mr. Will Weinman, and possibly Gaz White and Bob Knight. And she lived quite a while, but she was a brilliant lady and unbelievably opinionated. But she would attend as one of their guests a lot of the Rotary Club meetings. And every Sunday, maybe 2 or 3 days a week, Mr. Wyman and 8 or 10 other people would always have lunch at the Braven Hotel with Miss Lowry. She'd be the only lady there, you know. But she was quite a character, mm-hmm. and lived quite a while. She used to sit at a table all the time in Barrett's drugstore. You remember where that was, don't you, Don?
No,
huh?
I don't. Was that attached to the Braven?
Yeah. And
the side door.
Yeah, the side door. And mm-hmm. Barrett's was on the corner of Cherokee and the street running in front of the Braven there. Right. Yeah. And that was quite the place back in that time, you know. Yeah. But it was quite a time. It was very different from what it is now.
But you know, we had from our founding in 1924 up and through those years, the meeting place was the Braven Hotel.
Yes, that's
always
right.
for lunch.
That's right.
When did it change to the Quality Inn, or was there somewhere else in between?
It changed. I'm trying to think where we went. It changed when Braven Hotel went out of business. That's the only time it changed. I mean, they went out of business, and tourists quit coming through, you know, and it was over with, you know. And but I can remember they had a little museum down in the park, right on the corner, had minerals in it, and it seemed like every Sunday there would be a preacher down there around that museum preaching, you know. Mm-hmm. And it was just quite a place. It's just very different than what it is now.
I gather a lot of that coincided with the building of Highway 41.
Yes.
293 quit coming right through Cartersville.
That's right. Yeah. Well, actually, 293 came through Cartersville. 41 basically came through Cartersville too.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it was old 41 came right through Cartersville. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it boomed the four-way cafe. I mean, a lot of people love to stop at the four-way, driving through it, and have a chili burger, you know, and go on their way. But
good health food.
But Cartersville was quite a place then. And I forget, I would say there probably were over, in 1953, I doubt if there were, if my memory serves me correctly, around 3,000 people in Cartersville. And you literally would almost know, if you were in town, you would know everybody you were to see. It's not like now.
I believe that. Even as a young child, it seemed like I knew everybody walking the street, and everybody knew me.
You know everybody, And now, my goodness, you can go into Longhorns or any restaurant here and walk in there, and you may not see anybody you know. But there are people that live here, a lot of, but you don't know them. It's grown so. And it's amazing to me that we're now, I think we're at 110,000 people, the county.
Right.
And we're larger than Floyd County, which is just hard to believe, but we've made a lot of progress.
I-75.
That's right, that's right, yeah.
A place of destination here. Well, we went to the Quality Inn sometime in probably the 60s. Was that built in the early 60s or so?
I think it was, yeah. That's about the time. Well, we went from the Braven to the Quality. That would have been the only place we could have gone, really, back in that day and time. So, yeah, that's when we went there.
Right. I mean, there was, there still is, I guess, an issue with finding a location big enough to hold a club size of the Rotary Club.
It really is. It really is.
And serve them in a speedy fashion.
Right.
But I know we were up there, and I think we left there, if I'm not mistaken, to the Grassroots restaurant over on Henderson Drive for maybe 1 year. Larry Monroe had a restaurant over there.
He did.
And we thought maybe the food wasn't quite as good. And that lasted about a year, and we moved back.
Yep, I'd forgotten about that, yeah.
And so, year and a half ago, we were there until we moved to Backstreet
That's right.
Barbecue.
And the Quality Inn was started by Wesley Harris.
That's right.
He owned the Quality Inn, and the food there has always been delicious. And it was really delicious during the time the Rotary Club was there. You remember how good the food was. And my goodness, I'd go make up Rotary Club in St. Simons or Brunswick. And they thought they were serving great food if they gave you a sandwich and a banana and an apple. I mean, it wasn't.
That's right.
I mean, we had a wonderful meal up here. My goodness.
We did.
Yeah, black-eyed peas, rutabagas, fried chicken, you name it, we had it.
It's amazing how many salespeople would come in, Rotarians would stop by.
That's right.
Cartersville on Monday to get good lunch.
That's right, yeah. Especially those who tried making up in Rockmart one time. They would always come here.
A big difference. You touched on the Rotary and the children, you're talking about the tonsils and so forth. And I've read several articles just flipping through the newspapers on the microfiche or film up at the courthouse, and basically I've seen a lot of activities. I remember one where after Rotary Club was formed in 24, maybe within a year or two, gathered up all the underprivileged kids in the community and brought them out for ice cream, hot dogs, and a movie day on Saturday.
How wonderful, yeah.
And, I'm sure there's a lot of other activities that went on like that, but you kind of have to jump forward and talk about the Boy Scouts.
Oh, yeah.
In 1933.
We just have done a terrific job with Troop 24 and the Boy Scouts. I mean, and we've had great scout leaders come out of there. They come to Rotary, and the Rotary Club is just fantastic. I remember Shorty Verner was a scoutmaster, and they called him Shorty because he was about 6 feet 5 inches tall. And when he got back here out of school and everything, Harvey Howell was the assistant scoutmaster for a while.
Right.
Back when I was a young Boy Scout.
He was one of the early Eagle Scouts out of that troop.
I know he was. Yeah. And I got to be a Life Scout, and unfortunately, it's something I've regretted all my life. I didn't become an Eagle Scout because I didn't like to go camping, And the easy way to get your Eagle Scout badge was to go to the camp in the summertime.
Sure.
And my goodness, you could just get badge after badge after badge.
Still is.
That still is the way to do it. And I never did do that, so I got stuck in life as far as I got.
Yeah,
unfortunate. I really regret that.
Hey, I noticed that Turley Warlick was one of the first scout masters of the
well, boy, I wish
Troop 24.
I wish I could have been in Troop 24 at that time because the turtle dove, that had to be a sight now.
But they called it the Jamie Griffin Memorial Scout Hut.
That's right.
Clark Griffin, was he a dentist?
He was a doctor.
A doctor.
Yeah, I think he was a doctor.
Lived right behind where he donated the land for the building of the place.
And
did his son pass away, or?
Yes, and Jerry and Linda Benton ended up living there in Dr. Griffin's house.
That's right.
Yeah. And I don't. We've got the new Scout Hut now, which is fantastic.
It is.
Troop 24 does. But do you know who owns the old Scout hut?
No.
I don't either. It sticks in my mind that Jerry and Linda Benton ended up
Well,
with it.
we did. We gave them, looked up the original deed, and basically it was given to us as long as it was used as a scout hut.
Right.
So during my term as president, Joe Frank Jr. drew up an agreement,
Okay.
and we deeded it back to them.
Okay. Oh, that's kind of what I thought.
To get away
Right,
from the
right.
liability issues
Right,
there, since
right, yeah.
we would no longer have that scout
Yeah,
hut.
yeah.
And the Bentons wanted to add it back into their property.
Yeah.
So we did that at that time. Kind of a unique occurrence in 33 when ground was broken for that scout hut.
Yeah.
My granddaddy Guy was president of the Cartersville Rotary
right?
Club.
Is that right? Yeah.
And so he took the shovel and did the
Right.
turning of the dirt.
Right.
And in 2003, when I was president, that's when the new scout hut was built.
How
So
about
we
that?
turned the dirt
Yeah,
there. So
yeah,
I was kind of
yeah,
proud to
yeah,
follow
yeah.
that tradition. And also appreciate all your help in
Well,
getting
thank
that
you. Thank you.
accomplished up
Thank
there.
you.
And that is the finest scout hut
Oh,
in
it
the
really
state.
is. It really is. It's beautiful. And I got a glance at the charter members, and you said I might know a few of them. Well, I knew Mr. Paul Aiken, and I knew E. Dargan Cole. He was, that would be Dargan Cole, who's now deceased. That'd be his father.
My step-uncle.
Your step-uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
who it would be.
That's right, yeah. But was Mr. Wyman a charter member?
Well, let's just go through them real quick.
Okay.
We have Paul Aiken, his attorney, Joseph Calhoun,
Yeah, I knew.
President First National
right,
Bank
that's
at the
right.
time, and Emory Dargan Cole, Ed Cole as they
Mm-hmm.
called him, which you just mentioned, Milton Fleetwood, John Fowler. John was Secretary of Cartersville
Yeah, John
Mills.
Fletcher felt right. Oh,
Which
yeah.
used to be, many of us knew as Cartersville Spinning,
That's
which
right.
no longer
That's
exists
right.
anymore.
That's right.
Not Cartersville Spinning.
Easy Mills.
Easy Mills.
Yeah,
Excuse
Easy
me,
Mills.
that's correct.
Yeah. He was president Easy. Yeah.
Right. And then Donald Hancock, who was vice president of Cartersville
Donald
Ice and
Hancock,
Coal.
That's right.
In the days when you had to go buy your ice
That's
in a
right.
block.
And the first freezer lockers, they came along during the Second World War. He had the first freezer lockers in Cartersville. And people would go get peaches and cut them up and put sugar on them, take them in there and freeze them and go get them. It was quite a deal to have a locker, go get your stuff and, have your fresh vegetables in the wintertime,
Yes, yeah.
But he had a freezer locker, yeah.
That's nice. Frank Holt, owner of Holt Buick Company.
No, I don't know.
remember that.
I don't know. Mm-mm.
Sam Howell, of course,
Oh, sure,
surgeon.
sure.
Fred Knight, partner in Knight Mercantile.
Mm-hmm.
William Lumpkin, called him Pete, partner in Lumpkin Hardware.
Yeah, that would be, that is Margaretta, let me get it straight now. That is Margaretta Shaw's father,
Okay.
Pete Lumpkin. And Pete Lumpkin and Bob Knight served in the First World War together. Well, let's see, anyway, Pete actually went over and did a lot of fighting, and Bob was a PMS&T at some college, but they were just so close, And after they got back, they started a poker club. And Bud Shaw, we used to play poker and use the same chips that Bob Knight and Pete Lumpkin had, going way back then, way back then. And there's a picture in there of Bob and Pete together when they were young, and Bud still got that, those old poker chips, yeah.
And let's see, John Miller, called him Jack, president of American Textile Company.
Yeah, I didn't know him.
ATCO.
Yeah, I didn't know him. No.
And then, of course, Jay Monroe or Sil Neal,
Yes.
corporate attorney here. And William S. Peoples, you've mentioned
Yes,
him before,
yeah.
with Pega Mining. Henry B. Robertson, superintendent of public schools, called him Buck, and he was our first president.
Who was?
Henry Robertson.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to check my list. I'm going to make sure my memory's correct, but he was. But then he moved to Florida.
Okay.
After a short period of time, Paul Aiken took his balance his term.
Let me tell you a cute story about Joe Calhoun. I'll tell it on another blanket. But Joe Calhoun was known for, if you carried a bunch of money in the bank, you could borrow a little bit. But he didn't like to lend money. And I had a real good friend of mine, Ed Cutno. And Ed tells this story as a true story. Ed Cutno's father wanted to go borrow $50. And the banker, he grew up in South Carolina, Sumter, South Carolina. And the banker there was known for just not lending money. And the banker had a glass eye. And when Ed's father went in there, Ed was a young man and went in with him, and the banker said, "Mr. Cutlow, I'll make you the loan if you can tell me which one of my eyes is a glass eye," because he was proud of it. And he said, "Well, sir, it's the right eye." And he said, "Well, that is my false eye. How did you know that?" He said, "Because I see much more compassion in it than the other."
Oh, that's a great story. Let's see. Earl Shire, partner in Shire Brothers Dry Goods.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Barney Sloan, general manager of the Southern Leasing Corporation.
Sure. I've heard of all these people, but I didn't know them, you know.
And William Weinman, who you should have known
Oh,
well.
sure. Oh, yeah,
President
absolutely.
Thompson
Absolutely.
Weinman.
Yep.
And Isaac White, minister of the First Baptist Church.
No.
I didn't know him either.
No, that's interesting.
So anyway, I think we had mentioned that they were chartered, Rotary Club was chartered in May of 1924 with that crowd. I won't go down the list of presidents. It will be on file somewhere
Right,
if they want to find it.
That's right, yeah.
You know, when I look down the list of presidents, and I will throw in, I'm proud again. I had, you remember my grandfather Guy?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And my other grandfather Leon
That's
Scott.
right. That's right.
And Sherman Parmenter was a past president. That's three. And then I was happy to be a third generation president also.
That's wonderful.
However, Mike Howard got there first because his grandfather, father, and Mike
Sure.
were all presidents of the Cartersville Rotary Club. And now our current president, Evan Fleetwood, he would actually be a third generation.
He would be.
But he skipped a generation with his father because Billy was a member, I think, of the Cartersville Club a short period. Then he was one of those that left to the Bartow Club, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
But he has since been president of the Bartow Club. And his wife, I think, is current president of the Etowah Club.
Let me tell you a cute story. Holmes Neal was president. See what year you can find when Holmes was
Holmes
president.
Neal, 57 to 58.
Okay, 57, 58. I was 27, 28 years old. And Holmes asked me to go down with he and Nell to the convention that they were having in our district. What were we, District 60, 62, 692? Whatever.
It was different then. It was 6910 then, and the state used to be divided into two districts.
But anyway, it was at Jekyll Island.
Correct, every year.
And back then, the hotels at Jekyll Island were brand new. So it was really pretty.
Right.
And it's getting pretty again now. They're building stuff now. But anyway, Holmes' wife, Nell, they were having a big party that night, a big dance and the big ball where they introduced everybody and all that kind of stuff. Holmes was the president of our club. And Nell went to a beauty parlor, a real good one, and got her hair all curled up, just something beautiful. And I saw it right before she went in, right before they went in to get dressed, and I went in to get dressed. And I came out, and Holmes Neal was in the doghouse worse than anybody I'd ever seen. Because Holmes took a shower first. And he forgot to push the thing that takes it off of the shower head. And Nell gets in to take a bath and turns the water on, the hot steaming water comes right out on her hair. And her hair looked like a mop. It was just hanging straight down. And she was so mad at him, and I was surprised she went to the dance, but she did. Oh, golly. But Holmes survived it.
He survived
he survived, yeah.
We also had, let's see, Warren Aiken, who was a past district governor.
Yes, that's right.
At the time, we had two districts in the state, kind of East Georgia and West Georgia.
Right. And then Scott was district governor, was he not?
Scott, but he was a turncoat. He jumped over to the Bartow.
Well, he was district governor, though.
Right, I think 02 to 03.
Right.
And also Alphabet Collins.
Okay.
Was a district
ABC
governor. That's correct.
So there've been three district governors from Cartersville.
From Cartersville.
That's quite a deal. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And of course, since the early days when I was a member back in the 50s and 60s, we now have you can now become a Paul Harris Fellow, you know. And
right.
And I've always been proud of the Rotary Club because they've always got some great worldwide program going on to rid the world of TB or rid the world of this or that, you know. Really send the doctors over, really put the money into it. It's a fantastic organization. Fantastic.
Lots of money going to polio.
That's right.
And our club has, I can't count the number of thousands we put into that that effort.
Right. When I was on the freshman football team at Georgia Tech back in 1948, the Georgia Tech freshman game was always a huge game because freshmen couldn't play varsity football like they can now. And it was played in Grant Field, and it would be a sellout, 48,000, 50,000 people. And it was played on Thanksgiving Day. And we would all go, the Georgia players and the Tech players would go to the Scottish Rite home out on Piedmont Avenue and visit. It's one of the most humbling things I've ever done. Anybody that was on that team will tell you the same thing. To go in there, and back then polio was rampant, just rampant. And all of those kids in there, in that place, it's full of young kids, all had polio. And to go sit and give them a football, or sign a little something for them and everything, it was just a very humbling experience and would bring tears to your eyes, you know. But that's one of the, something I've always been happy I was able to remember, you know. Yeah.
Well, I think that is one of the big, when we talk to a new Rotarian now and give them an orientation, basically, to make them to hopefully instill in them the understanding that Rotary is not just local, it is a worldwide service organization.
That's right.
And I remember going along with that, and the year before I was president, I guess when Bill Green was president, Scott was governor, and he was pushing this 100% participation in the Rotary Foundation,
and
also the Georgia Rotary Student Program. And so at that time, they wanted $100 per person.
Correct.
And wanted $60 per person on the Rotary Student Foundation and $100 on the Rotary Foundation.
Right.
So basically, we talked about it on the board and said, how are we going to do this? Because we had a few that just weren't giving money out elsewhere. So Chuck Doggett, as you well know, worked for you for a long time. He said, I'll stand up in front of the club and I'll tell them the facts that we are going to start charging, you know, a full $100 for the Rotary Foundation and $60 for the Georgia Rotary Student Program. And I was, truthfully, after I really had a great understanding of that, I was happy that we did that.
I am
to support Rotary.
Right, absolutely.
As Rotarians. But we do, every year, give a lot of money to a lot of other causes, especially a lot of children's causes. Murphy Harps, what's the children's shelter here, and some others, and Advocates and a number of other groups. So that's been good. Also, I would like to note for the record that basically and this came up when we were doing the new Boy Scout hut. One question came up about Girl Scouts, and of course we'll get into the subject of women in our club shortly. But that question came up about, well, what kind of money are you going to give for the Girl Scouts? In early 50s, at the urging of the Cartersville Service League, the Cartersville Rotary Club built the Girl Scouts club over there on the school property. Got
Douglas Street School.
No, Cherokee Avenue. It was the Cherokee Avenue School. It was. It faces on the Cherokee Avenue today, and it's right up from the gym. The next building back toward town from the gym.
That's where the Montessori school.
In between. It's in between the Montessori.
Okay, Montessori.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Montessori school started in the old superintendent's office. And then it spread out into the band room next door. Going down the hill. And the next one, the hut, was the Scout hut. But I believe it's reverted back to a Boy Scout hut now because for another troop. Because I don't believe for various reasons, the Girl Scouts didn't maintain it. And so forth. So at least it's getting used as a Scout hut.
Well, when did we start taking ladies into the Rotary Club? Do you remember?
Well, Bobby Neal had a talk with me after last Monday's Rotary Club, and he claimed responsibility for the first woman to come into our club. And Bob Neal was in the club in '89 to '90, and I happened to write down the notes that he gave me. So Leah Herring with Georgia Power was the first lady
Is that
in
right?
our Rotary
Y'all remember her?
Club at the time.
Yeah.
Liz Hood followed
Yeah.
after that, but at that time she was with United Way here,
Yeah,
and then left and then came back
Right,
in
right.
For the downtown
Yeah,
program. Denise, I believe Denise Archer followed that.
Okay.
And also at the time we were talking about African American types, and the minister at the Mount Zion AME Church, he had come here. He was a former police chief from Anchorage, and
That's right. I
he
remember
came
him.
here as a minister, and he joined our club for a short period of time.
Yeah.
We can't remember his name, though.
No.
I tried to
But I
look it
remember
up.
He really gave a really interesting program one day about being the police chief of Anchorage, Alaska.
He did. I remember
Fascinating program. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he was followed by Ernestine
Right.
Young Jones.
Well, normally one wonderful thing about the Rotary Club is, our club, is that each member is responsible for getting one program during the year, And if you do that and really do it in a way where you want to do something, you can always come up with a really good program. And the two worst programs I can ever remember.
Oh.
We had a fellow in the club, Ellis Dissiker. Did you know Ellis?
I remember
You
Ellis.
remember Ellis, don't you?
I do.
And Ellis was the conservation agent here. And he gave the most boring talk on ditches one day I have ever. It was awful. He had pictures of different kind of ditches, And then, even worse than that, Pete Gray, who's just passed away. Pete had a very brilliant guy, come in from Georgia Tech and give a talk on low temperatures. And everybody there was just about to go to sleep. It was awful. It was awful. But other than that, that's the only two programs I could ever remember that weren't really, really good. They were very good.
Some of them were unusual. I'm not going to call names of who brought them, but the worst two that I can ever remember was one lady who, a group came in, tried to sell these little individual trampolines that you could jump on and exercise.
Okay.
And another one dealt with, and I can't remember, he was a restaurant owner in downtown Atlanta. I think he used to have that Down the Hatch restaurant, whatever it was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, well, this fella had a brilliant military career.
Right.
And special forces, and he'd been all over the world, but he came up here and started talking some politics, and it was just totally awful. And that reminds me of the worst too. One of the most unique ones I heard, I think, when Terry Lewis was in the club, Transcendental Meditation class. Had us all stand up and doing all sorts of things, and that one I will always remember. But it was really a fun program at the time.
I remember nobody could beat when they would always say, "Okay, the program's over. Any questions?" Nobody could beat Bill Miller. You remember Bill Miller, don't you?
Yes.
Boy, that hand was up like that, and he always had a good one. But he was always the first one to ask a question. Always, yeah. Well, I've been. If it's a preacher, you get superannuated. I don't know what I've been, but I reached a certain age and had been a member for 40 years or 50 years or whatever it is, and I'm in an unusual kind of position because if I miss a Rotary meeting, it doesn't count against their attendance. Where one of the main tenets of the Rotary Club is attendance, as you know. And back when I was a kid, and we call it middle school now, but it's upper grammar school and maybe freshman in high school. My daddy, he traveled a lot to our mine out in Missouri, and in a little town called Potosi, Missouri, there was just no Rotary clubs. And then back, whoever missed the most meetings in a 3-month period, they had a billy goat. And you had to keep this little billy goat. And we had that billy goat for over 3 years. And he died living with us. And that's back when I lived on Main Street. It'd be about where the nursery school at the Presbyterian Church is now. Our house was right there. And that little billy goat, we had a little narrow ledge by the breakfast room, and I can see him right now. We'd be in there eating breakfast, a little billy goat just be walking that little ledge looking at us in the window. But we had us a billy goat for a long, long time, you know.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was that story I was supposed to ask.
Okay, well, it's true. It's true. We may have had him over 3 years. I mean, we had him a long time. They retired the billy goat with my daddy.
Yeah, I can't remember anything else like that.
Yeah, well, they did. Yeah, okay.
Well, I hate to inform you, though, but the what we used to call the 85 rule, it is the senior active. That Rotary International did away with it this past year.
No, I'm not senior active. No. I'm more than that. I'm almost booted out.
No, that the attendance deal, Rotary International pulled it back. So I asked my brother, I said, what are we going to do? Because we have a lot in our club, or have through the years, that are in your classification. And in fact, I can go into that same classification next year. And he told me, said that they had done away with it, but as far as our district was concerned, they'll leave it up to each individual club how they want to deal with it.
There for a while, there were only 3 in our club. That was excuse me, Harvey Howell, Holmes, Neal, and myself. We were the only 3 for a long time.
When I was president, I believe we had about 18 or 19. It was a bunch.
Surely not.
We
Is
did.
that right?
We did. Well, we had an older club, and you
I
know,
know
it
we had
taken
an
a
older
lot
club.
of new members.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
And that was, well, the Bartow. You know, we sponsored the Bartow Club because we got Equality In over 100 members.
Yeah, we couldn't hold
function.
That's right.
So 12 members left us and formed the Bartow Club.
Well, there's a morning club now, isn't it?
It's the Etowah Club.
Etowah Club, that's
right.
Yeah. So there are 3 Rotary clubs in
3 Rotary clubs.
Bartow County now.
And we were sponsored by the Marietta Club. Marietta's Club sponsored a lot of clubs in North Georgia back in the 20s.
So they sponsored us in 1924 or 23 or whatever it was?
Correct, in 24. And then we sponsored the Bartow Club, and the Bartow Club sponsored the Etowah Club.
Okay.
That's correct. And on the memberships, there's you have an active member, you have a honorary member, but those have to be voted on each year.
Right.
And used to have, as say, the 85 rule, the senior actives or whatever. But as I say, they're trying to do away with that. But we're going to continue it.
Okay, well, good.
Because I want to be in it next year.
Okay. That's good.
Anything else
Not a thing I can think of. I've had a wonderful time talking with you about this.
I have too.
I just wish more people could have been around in the days of the Braemen Hotel, because what a wonderful place that was. And the Seal Hotel, CILE, was right next door. And it was run by Jody Riley. She was Jody White, Joellen White.
That's right.
Married Hugh Pettit, and Hugh passed away, and then she's married to Alan Riley now quite a few years. And her mother and daddy ran that hotel. And Jody, if you had a date with Jody, you went to the hotel to pick her up because that's where she lived. And I guess they had a little suite back in there, you know, and everything. But it was a much smaller hotel than the Braemen Hotel, but nevertheless, you know,
Can you imagine what Braemen Hotel would mean for Cartersville today if we had it and somebody could have put the money to restore it?
I think it'd be wonderful.
It'd
be wonderful, yeah. And of course, it sits now basically where City Hall is.
Correct.
Yeah. And City Hall was where the old, you remember the old post office, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. That was some building too, yeah.
The only job in town I never wanted was the one who pushed that cart full of mail.
Oh, I know it.
Up to the top of the hill.
I know it.
To the post office.
I know it. From the train to the post office.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a big cart.
I know it.
Metal rim wheels.
Oh, yeah. And they used to come through here, and they'd have that big bag of mail down there by the train, and they'd put it out there, and that hook would get it. And here it'd go, you know. Yeah.
Different time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have really enjoyed this.
Well, thank you.
And I want to let you know, this, other than having a tuxedo on, this is the first time I've ever worn a bow tie in my life.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I did it because I was going to be interviewed by a distinguished gentleman like you, so I got all dressed up.
People will be seeing this for 100, 200 years to come.
Well, good,
so
good,
that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. All right.
It's Saturday, March 3rd, 2012. I'm Guy Parmenter, interviewing Avery, Holland. We're here at WBHF headquarters right next to the Grand Theater in downtown Cartersville. Avery.
Good morning,
Good
Guy.
morning. How are you?
Having a good time.
Wonderful. Why don't we start out? Tell us when and where you were born.
Well, I was born in Stevens County, Georgia, in 1916. You don't know the age about it. And I was in Hiawassee when they invited me to come here to be the county agent. That was 1952.
1952.
I moved in here in 1952 and had a 5-year-old daughter, Jane, and then the other girl was born that fall, Laurie. So I got the 2 daughters, and they both live here now.
That's wonderful. What other towns have you lived in? You said you were born in Stevens County. What town was that?
I lived in Dawsonville for 11 years. I thought that was going to be my permanent home, but the time came for me to move, and I moved. So I went to Hiawassee and stayed about a year there, and Griffin Smith was commissioner here. He came up there and interviewed me and decided that he liked me, so I got to be county agent here. Now, I worked almost 20 years for retired with disability.
What was your educational background?
I got a BSA from Georgia, Bachelor of Science in Agriculture.
Right. Was the county extension program, was it funded and paid for by the individual counties that hired, or was it through the University of Georgia?
The federal government puts some money into the state, and the state puts some money into the county, and then the county matches that. So it's a triple deal.
All right. Now, you married when and to who?
I married in 1933, I think. That's a long time ago, guy. But I had Virginia Williams and Winder, and we were married for about 70 years before she died.
Well, she was a wonderful lady. Where did y'all meet?
We met in Winder. When I finished college, I got a job as assistant county agent in Winder, and I found Virginia right away. So she was my only one.
And tell me a little about the county extension service, the type of work that you did.
County extension service is educational, purely and simply. We take the information from the experiment stations, the College of Agriculture, and bring it to the county. Have to get it on the farm, get it actually in use.
Now, you work very heavily with the farmers in the community?
Yes. As way it went, they did not have a 4-H agent here, so I looked at the 4-H club and the adult program for a long, long time.
Where was your office?
In the courthouse, 2nd floor.
All right. What let's say this with your job. What were some of the most interesting things that you did at the time, or something that just stands out with that job, working with various farmers?
I would go visit farmers on their farm, and I'd pretty well spend the day in the office, but in the afternoon I'd always want to get out and visit somebody on the farm. And that's one of the things that seemed to go over with our people here, to have me come see them on their own farm.
Now, did you do any farming yourself?
What kind?
Any farming yourself?
No, I have never done any farming other than as a boy at home, of course, raised on the farm, and I plowed the mule. My daddy didn't like to plow, so he would hoe and I got to plow.
Now, when you came here, we were primarily agricultural community.
Yeah.
Strictly, very little industry.
Griffin Smith said our farmers knew how to grow cotton, but the insects were eating it up, and he wanted somebody to help to control the insects. So I got to be an insect specialist right off. I learned boll weevils and thrips and everything that would attack the cotton plants. So.
Now, there was a point here, I know when I was a young man growing up, there was still cotton in the fields.
Yes.
Back up through the early, say, the 60s and so forth.
Yeah,
and then it kind of disappeared for a while. What was the issue?
They got to growing it in the areas that could produce it cheaper than we could. And that's always the main thing, is can you make money at it or not? And they cut the price on down to our farmers could not compete unless they had a big old machine, and very few folks ever bought the cotton machines. Joe Brandon bought one of them, The big old machine would pick about 5 rows at a time.
Now, was there a difference in the cotton? I noticed in some Goodyear material I read at one time that the strands of cotton were not long enough to use in the manufacturing of tire cord that we
Yes.
produced here. They were getting it out of South America, a lot of it.
Yeah, our cotton was short staple. It hardly ever got to be an inch long, and the staple is the length of the fiber itself. We had about 7/8 inch staple, where in South America they had inch or inch and a half. So folks that wanted the long staple cotton passed us up. It took so much labor to grow cotton that our people just went plumb out.
Did the cotton that we produced, was it used for clothing primarily?
Yes,
Textile?
yes.
What other goods did we grow here through your term as extension agent?
That
Any
cotton was mainly it. I think we got cotton from here that went into making the tire fabrics. You may be familiar with that. Seemed like that was one of the purposes.
Some of it was?
Yes.
All right. We had a lot of cotton gins through this whole
Yeah.
area. Now you can't find one.
Yeah, there were gins all over this county. But they went right on down to we just have one man now, and I don't think he gins in this county. But, I think he carries his cotton to Alabama and he can get it ginned.
Okay. Anything else come to mind while you were extension agent?
Well, I just enjoyed getting out to visit the folks on the farm. I'd drive up to the house and say, "Come on out here, you just fella I've been looking for. What's the matter out back here?" So always everybody had a problem when I'd go see them. So I'd try to help with the farmers' problems.
You were a member, I believe, of the, and still are, the Harley Farmers Club, which is the
Yes.
oldest farmers club in the country.
That's one of the oldest continuous meeting clubs there is. It was organized. This was something that happened back before my time, that in this January, a dozen farmers would get together and as a club and organize, and they'd take each month, each member, that club would meet at his house at his month, and he'd feed them and have a program. That's the way it was in the beginning of the Farmers Club. And they had several, but the Harley Farmers Club is the only one still left.
Other than Rotary, which we're going to talk about in a minute, were there any other organizations that you were involved with here?
I was pretty
statewide?
strong in the County Agents Association. I got to be the president of the Georgia County Agents back that one time. Quite a star, I think.
Sure it was. Sure was. How about your family? Grandchildren?
Got 2 girls and 2 boys, grandchildren.
Fantastic. And are both of them living here in Cartersville?
Yes, both daughters live here. I see them nearly every day.
Do you remember, to skip forward to the Rotary Club, you remember, I believe, according to my notes, you joined in July of '51, which makes you the oldest living Rotarian in Cartersville.
Yeah. Well, Milton Fleetwood took me under his arm, and first thing he did when I got here, I had to come to the Rotary Club with him. So I did. I became a member right shortly after I got here. The member who was secretary left just about the time I got here, so they made me secretary right off the bat. So I've been involved in doing Rotary work from the beginning. I finished out his term, and then they elected me as secretary the next year. Then after that, I went on to vice president and president. But I enjoyed all my Rotary years.
Now you're serving as attendance chair now, and make sure everybody shows up.
I enjoy keeping the role. I'm real thankful that I can remember people's names. I can meet them and greet them by name. So I've been real fortunate about that guy that I call people by name.
You have. What's some unique things that you remember about the Rotary Club other than those responsibilities? You remember great programs or the worst program that you've heard, or things that you really stood out to be real proud of as a Rotarian?
We had one once, on the cold climate. I've forgotten the name of this little island, but it was the worst we've ever had. The one that had a little movie about how cold it was. Folks been laughing about that one ever since. We've had some good programs. We try to get people who know what they're talking about to come to tell us what their job is and keep us informed of what everybody else is doing.
Anything else you'd like to add as far as the Rotary Club or your time in the Extension Agency? Or
I got to go help with the Rotary district right shortly after I got here. Alphabet Collins was the district governor, and he was in charge of the program down at Crystal Springs, Radium Springs. I get close to it. And he carried me and Clyde Medlock down there to help him run the first Rotary assembly I ever attended. And since then, I've been trying to go pretty regularly, especially since I retired and had some time on my hands. I took it kind of as a semi-vacation.
did you go to many of the district conferences?
I went regularly to come look around and find out nobody else in my club was going. I said, if they didn't, I wasn't. So I quit going too.
Well, I would have to say, I being in the same club, we don't have a good record of attendance for the district conference, but I've enjoyed it every time I've been. I've been about at least 4 or 5 times, but I don't go every year. I wish I did. You meet a lot of great people there.
Cream of the crop, and they do have good, interesting programs, informative, and let you be a better Rotarian when you get back home.
That's right. Avery, we were at the Braven Hotel for a number of years, a long time since its founding in 1924, and the time came when the Braven closed and the Rotary Club had to move. Where did we go?
We went to Morrell's restaurant. Perkins died just recently on that, and they invited us to come up there, and we met it. Oh, it was several years.
Was that the old location on Tennessee Street?
Yes. Yeah, we're on North Tennessee. But we had a little unhandy for lots of our people, so they got away from there as soon as they could.
So the old Quality Inn opened up?
Yes.
Somebody got us away?
Yes. Made it Quality Inn until they said they didn't want us anymore. So.
Well, I think the food quality went low.
It was mutual.
Yeah.
Lots of our members didn't eat there. They would eat somewhere else and come to the meeting.
Do you remember anything special about the Braven when we were there? The service, was it better? Anything in particular?
Bob Knight, one of our older members, lived there, and he was quite a gentleman and a scholar, but he'd meet folks and bow and scrape and make you feel welcome when you get there. He was quite a character to know. Let him tell some of the tale about Knights. But,
what kind of attendance did we have at that time, members-wise? 40, 50, what we have now?
It was good. The secretary left, as I said, and somehow or other they made me acting secretary for the rest of that year. Then the next year I got elected secretary myself. So I kept rolling. It's pretty good attendance.
You brought up Alphabet Collins' name, and
yes.
There's kind of a move underfoot, I think, to restore the old genetics building and add it on to the college out there. What went on when the genetics plant at the time, or the research lab, I guess is what it was?
Alphabet believed in reproducing plants, and he was running a little backyard program, and he got some of his friends to build the Georgia Institute of Genetics so he could get out there and improve seeds. He would take foundation seeds, as the first generation seeds from experiment station on the new plant, and he would take those seeds out there and plant them and reproduce them in several generations to be sure they came back pure and true. And that was the Georgia Institute of Genetics. He said he got friends to put up the money to build that place. So I don't know what they're doing with it now.
Well, it's been vacant for a number of years, but I've just heard the rumblings that the college is very interested in adding that on to as part of their facilities and fixing it up.
It would be real nice that they did make it a part of the college. Oh, that's a beautiful old building. Yeah.
Now, was Alphabet, as far as the operation of that, was that funded through the University of Georgia, or?
That was just private.
Total private.
He got to doing his propagation in the backyard, and he got friends to build that so he could take plants and reproduce them out there.
Just totally his friends here, not?
Yeah, just friends around the county and maybe state.
I need to find friends like
But
that.
when Alphabet, when I got here, he said he got to be district governor, and he said he'd go into all of the district meetings, and his backyard back seat was always empty if I wanted to go along. So I went with him to lots of the conferences.
Anything else you can remember about it? Anything special, Rotary? I know Jim Dellinger talked about the goat. Gave a great narration on that.
Jim Dellinger followed me as a president, and I enjoyed working with him. He wanted to keep on doing what we'd been doing. We had a good club of good men in the Rotary, and still have. They come and they go.
Anything you'd like to see different with the Cartersville Rotary Club today?
No, as far as I can tell, it's about running as well as we can run it. So
Pretty well runs itself. I believe we've had some great years lately.
yeah,
Anything?
that covers that, guy.
Well, anything else as far as church affiliation or
Well,
other groups, or anything you want to say about Cartersville as a whole or the county?
I came in here, my wife was a Methodist, and I joined Sam Jones Methodist Church with her, and we've been supporting it ever since. The Sam Jones Methodist Church is a good church.
Now, Virginia, did she work or she stay home?
Virginia never did hold a public job. She stayed at home and raised the children and fed me while I worked.
Did she have any activities she liked to enjoy?
She belonged to the garden club, was a pretty active member in there. They wanted to make her president, but she didn't want to be president, so she didn't become president.
Well, at least everybody needs a hobby. How about your two daughters? Did they go on to college or?
Yes, yeah, I was real happy. Jane graduated from LaGrange College, and Laurie, the younger one, went over there for a while, but she didn't like that, so she went to nursing school in Kennesaw and graduated there with a degree in nursing.
So what is Jane doing now?
Hers is family services of some sort. I don't
All right.
know exactly what they call it.
Well, Laurie was my neighbor for a number of years, if you
Yeah.
remember, and she was a great friend. We've certainly seen a lot of changes in the community growth-wise. It used to be an agricultural community, and the population of Cartersville stayed dormant at probably 7,000, 9,000 for a long, long time, even up to I was in high school.
It like never busted. It stayed right on 9,000, on and on. And the county was up about 60, wasn't it? 60,000.
It's about 60,
And then
65.
it jumped up to 100,000 just overnight.
I mean, it was kind of like a transaction. Everybody was agricultural. The towns were small. The towns serviced the farms.
Yeah.
The farms went away, and then we had to build an industry because I remember there was a big push in the early 50s,
Yeah.
51, 52, 1950, to bring some
That was
industry
the
into
big
this
changes,
community and pick up that void that we had in the agricultural community as such. How did that affect you? Did you think that as far as soil conservation office that job was going to be gone one day? The time was going to run on it.
There was
so to speak?
Every time they'd change administration in Washington, they'd say they're going to cut out the soil conservation program and give county agent the whole job. And then the next crowd, they'd say we're going to cut out county agents and give the soil conservation the whole job. So, but Joe Myers was a soil conservationist, and he and I worked together just like we were one team. I had a key to his office, and he had a key to mine. So we both had offices in the courthouse.
Now, Joe was a Rotarian also.
Yes, he was.
Rotary.
He never did. They offered him to be president, but Joe never did want to be president. So
I remember Joe and both you and Virginia come to the Historical Society meetings when we had those. And
yeah,
Joe was always real active, had us out to his house on Cassville Road, which was a pre-Civil War home, and kept that up for years until he passed. Now, he was paid by the federal government?
yes, yeah. The soil conservationist was purely federal, and the county agent was that triple deal where the federal government turned money over to the state, and the state to the university, and the university to the county. So, and that's the way the county agent was a triple header.
Right. Now, what did the soil conservation person do different than what you did?
They did it strictly conservation, help run terraces on the field to be sure that it was properly drained without washing off the soil, and cover crops. You cover the land up with a growing crop, and it wasn't going to wash in it. So that's the kind of work they did.
Now, you were followed by Walter Culverhouse, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, Walter came right behind me, and he was my kind of county agent. He wanted to go see people and let them ask him questions.
How have you, and I know you have to, you've seen the county evolve. I mean, you said you worked in the old courthouse on the hill, 1903 courthouse. You had an office in there, county commissioner.
Yeah.
The courtroom was upstairs, and I guess with that population growth, we've quadrupled the size of county government. Built an additional building out to the side. What do you think? A lot of that is still necessary, or how did you feel when you were there in the old courthouse? Was it adequate for your needs at the time?
Yes. Yeah, we did everything that needed to be done, but anytime anybody gets a position where they can increase that, it looks like they do. Keep on adding more government.
You think every administration has to put their mark on something?
You got to put the mark on it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we have really expanded, I think, government significantly across the country now, and but we do have a lot more population.
But I enjoyed my days as a county agent where I'd go see folks, and I was just at home. They'd invite me right in, and I remember Mr. John Carroll lived way up past Taylorsville. Come out there, I'd always have to eat with him. He, John Carroll Jr., Daddy. But I'd visit the last house at the end of the road, and I think his was the last house at the end of the road.
Wait, how about Taylorsville, for instance? That was primarily an agricultural town, too.
Yes,
Was it
was strictly agricultural.
in the early days when you were here, were heavily populated? Or
It was all cotton. It just wasn't much town, just people who worked on the farm. We were a rural county pretty much. And then they started clustering in the town. I think we had 20 different 4-H clubs when I came. We had that many different schools in the county. And then they started consolidating schools and getting rid of school until I don't think I had but 4 or 5 clubs when I retired.
did you see a progression of a lot of the students going into farming after the 4-H experience?
No, I didn't. They wanted to get away from the farm. That's the thing about farming is no easy life. Most folks want to put the mule up and get to town.
That's right. Well, anything else we can add?
That pretty well covers it, Guy.
Well, I've enjoyed it.
It's been a treat to get to visit with you again. We've been in the Rotary together for a long, long time, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday at the Rotary Club.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Thank you.